Welcome, friend. Today's topic is about the problem of two emperors. If you're here, you're probably already familiar with the topic. But if you're not, I hope this video clears things up for you. Alright, let's get started. So, what does the problem of two emperors mean? The problem of two emperors usually refers to the dispute between the Holy Roman Emperors and the so-called Byzantine, or in other words, Eastern Roman emperors. The idea of one universal empire, and thus one universal emperor as well, was a popular idea in the Christendom during the medieval times. It's based on an interpretation of verses 39 and 40 on the second chapter of the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. However, both the Eastern Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire claim the title simultaneously. Since there can only be one true empire, this creates a contradiction. This contradiction is what will be called the problem of two emperors. So here's what you should know about both empires. Both empires had centuries of shared existence. They would recognize each other as emperors, but not as Romans. The Eastern Romans would use titles such as the King of Franks to describe the Holy Roman Emperor, and the citizens of the Holy Roman Empire would describe the Eastern Roman emperors with titles such as the Emperor of the Greeks. The Roman, as a title, was used in hopes of legitimizing various states and their rulers, as the Roman culture and legal system had a large influence on the world. So being considered Roman held a lot of prestige. It was vital for the universal empire to be recognized as Roman, for the Roman emperors were the ones established as the rulers of the Christian church in the place of Christ. This ties into the Roman imperial cult in the past, back when Roman emperors would be considered demigods. So, how did this dispute even begin? Let's delve into the backstory. First of all, the capital of the Roman Empire was moved to Byzantium by the Emperor Constantine in the year 324. Contrary to a popular belief, he didn't move the capital from Rome, as Rome hadn't been the capital for a few decades by that time. However, he did move the capital from the Italian peninsula, which was a large shift. Constantine renamed Byzantium as Nova Roma, which means the New Rome in Latin. The city was later renamed Constantinople in the honor of Emperor Constantine. And if you're confused on where Constantinople is located, it's the same as modern-day Istanbul. The main reasons for the change of capital into Constantinople were based on its very pragmatic location, centered at the crossroads of various trading routes, not to mention the militaristic situation at the time, requiring more attention in the east. The final split of the empire into the Western and Eastern empires occurred in the year 395, though the empire had been sectioned into two parts before. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the year 476, only the eastern half remained. So let's get into the topic of the Eastern Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, or the so-called Byzantine Empire, was formed in the year 330. It's very important to note that the term Byzantine Empire was coined later by Hieronymus Wolf, who was a historian from the Holy Roman Empire in the 16th century. As you can guess, Hieronymus Wolf had an agenda. The term Byzantine Empire was not a contemporary term, and it was used to elevate the legitimacy of the Holy Roman Empire, while also de-legitimizing the Eastern Roman Empire. Despite that, I would say that it's alright to use the term Byzantine Empire because it makes it more comprehensive for people who are not so much into history. Anyway, the territory of the Eastern Roman Empire peaked during the reign of Justinian I in the 6th century. When his general Flavius Belisarius conquered a large portion of the former Western Roman territories. It's important to note that the culture of the Eastern Roman Empire was more Greek influenced than the culture of the Romans in the classical period, though the Roman culture had always been influenced by the Greek culture. Some argue that the Eastern Romans shouldn't be considered Romans as they were too Greek influenced. For example, Justinian I was the last emperor to speak Latin as his first language. If you're interested, you could search for some information on the Hellenization of the Byzantine Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire was conquered by the Ottomans in the year 1453. The Ottomans also claimed Roman succession by the right of conquest. Let's talk about the Holy Roman Empire next. The Holy Roman Empire was formed after Empress Irene of the Eastern Roman Empire had deposed and blinded her son, Constantine VI, seizing the power for herself. And having a woman as the emperor or empress was seen as a sign of the East being depraved. However, it's not as simple as that. There had been an ongoing rift between the West and the East for some time by that time. And to be more exact, I'm referring to the rift between the Western representatives of the Church and the Eastern Roman throne. One of the notable factors behind it was the iconoclasm of the 8th century. So, Pope Leo III proclaimed the King of the Franks, also known as Charlemagne, as the Roman Emperor in the December of the year 800. With this came the concept of translatio imperii, or transfer of imperial rule, which is the idea that an empire can be transferred from hand to hand and from place to place. The reasons for choosing Charlemagne as the new Roman emperor include the fact that he was controlling many of the former Western Roman territories, as he was the king of the Franks, while another important factor was the fact that Charlemagne was established as the defender of the papacy, as was his father before him. More specifically, Charlemagne defended the papacy from the Lombards. Here's some random trivia on Charlemagne. It is said that the King of Hearts card represents Charlemagne. Let's talk more about the Holy Roman Empire. The Great Schism, or in other words, the separation of the Church, in the 11th century would only magnify the rift between the West and the East. The Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire was elected by Prince Electors and then approved by the Pope since the 13th century, though this election was often just a formality. The Holy Roman Empire was very decentralized. For example, there was never a permanent capital of the Holy Roman Empire, and there were lots of local rulers whose power would restrict the emperor's power. So, overall, the Holy Roman Empire resembled a confederation more rather than an empire, especially in its later stages. The Protestant Reformation highlighted how divided the Holy Roman Empire really was, and even destabilized it further by indirectly causing the 30 Years' War. The Holy Roman Empire was dissolved in the year 1806, when its last emperor, Francis II, abdicated his throne. For most of its history, medieval Latin was the official language of the Holy Roman Empire, but not the language commonly spoken in everyday life. Let's get back in the East. I didn't mention this before, but there was also this period of Catholic Crusader rule during the history of Constantinople, which will later be called the Latin Empire. The Latin Empire is not a contemporary term. This term was coined in the 16th century, and the Latin Empire existed in the 13th century. This happened during the Fourth Crusade, when Catholic Crusaders would sack Constantinople. The Latin emperors recognized the Holy Roman emperors as legitimate, but also claimed the title for themselves. However, the Holy Roman emperors saw themselves as superior to the Latin emperors. Eventually, Pope Innocent III ended up accepting the idea of dividing the imperial hegemony between the West and the East. This would be called Divisio Imperii. However, the Eastern Roman rule was eventually restored. After the period of Latin rule, the Eastern Roman emperors would ignore the problem of two emperors in favor of diplomacy. This was important as the political situation in the East was very challenging. The problem resurfaced again after the Ottomans took control of Constantinople in the year 1453. Despite the dispute between the Holy Roman and Ottoman empires being finally solved in the year 1606 as part of a peace treaty, the issue will be brought up again by Russia, which claimed succession to the Eastern Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire will recognize their claim to the imperial title in the year 1745. This is my personal opinion, but I think that the Eastern Roman Empire, or the so-called Byzantine Empire, was the legitimate successor of the Roman Empire. If you feel differently, feel free to challenge me in the comment section. I would also like to hear your perspective on the matter. Thank you for watching.